Welcome to the Bookish Hour with your hosts, Sarah E. Burr and J.C. Kenney.
And good evening, everyone. We are live. Welcome to the Bookish Hour. I am one of your co-hosts, Sarah Burr, joined by the wonderful...
Well, I don't know about wonderful, but I'm the other co-host, otherwise known as See, I can't even talk. That's why I'm the other co-host. Otherwise known as the Comedy Relief, J.C. Kenney. And Sarah and I are thrilled to have a fellow cozy mystery author, fellow literary agency mate with us tonight, the wonderful, fabulous, you know her, you love her, Rose Kerr.
Yay!
Hi, Rose.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for that wonderful introductions, Jim. It's very nice to be here. It's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to tonight.
I'm just having like flashbacks right now, Rose, to when we were at Malice, because we also all got to meet in person for the first time, which was really exciting. And I'm still like your panel that you both were on for The Wonders of Agatha Christie was truly, truly wonderful. So tell us, our audience, a little bit about how you got into writing, mystery writing in general, and a little bit about the book that you're here to celebrate.
Thanks, Sarah. Malice was awesome. It was so much fun.
Yes.
So what got me into mysteries? When I was a lot younger, I read the Trixie Belden, the Nancy Drew books, and I loved them. And I went through those quickly. And I even started reading my brother's Hardy Boys. And, that was, they didn't like that, but they had no choice. I was the older sister. And then I discovered Agatha Christie. And I fell in love with her books. They were wonderful. She wrote so clearly, so well. The clues were left everywhere. If you could figure it out, you would know who did it before Hercule knew about it. So what really got me is I was at home one afternoon. I was about 12 or 13 years old, and I'd stayed behind. My mom and my brothers had gone to my grandmother's place, and I was reading And Then There Were None. And I had come to this really scary part in my world where it was you were going to find out who the killer was. And I was the only person in the house, and I was reading the passage, and all of a sudden the front door slams open, and my brothers come tearing through the house, screaming at the top of their lungs, like somebody's after them. And I jumped out of my chair and I yelled at them, like, what the heck is wrong with you guys? And I had been so absorbed in the story. I hadn't heard the car drive up. I hadn't heard them open the door. I had heard them slam it open and running through the house. And when I realized that, I realized the power of the written word, how it can take you and it can pull you into another world that you are oblivious to what's happening around you, and it gives you that escape from reality, which is what I was experiencing that afternoon. Now, so I was 12, 13 years old, and I thought, one day I want to do that. I really want to do that. So my one day didn't happen for a long time. I had to live life a bit before I actually figured out how to write and do all the rest of it. But yeah, that was pretty much what brought me into the writing. Yeah.
So was it always mystery that you were like drawn into for writing, or did you experiment in other genres?
I tried romance writing because cozies weren't a thing when I started to think about writing. I graduated university, and it was in the 70s, so I'm dating myself there, but and cozies weren't around. There was Agatha Christie, there was the PIs, and there was the true crime kind of books. And I knew I didn't want to write true crime, and I didn't want to write PIs, and I didn't think I could ever write anything like Agatha Christie. So I thought, well, maybe I'll try romance, because that was the other thing that was out there. And I was terrible at romance. It was awful. I would much rather kill people than see them live happily
Live
ever
happily
after.
ever after.
So, you know.
Now,
Yeah.
JC, you had written romance, correct, as well?
Yeah, I actually got my start when I first got serious writing back about, well, 2011 or so. Yeah, I've told the story that I just got this idea in my head, felt compelled to write it, and it turned out to be a romance. And so, yeah, I started out as a romance writer as well. Got a few books published, but thanks to our wonderful agent, Don Dowdle, she suggested, yeah, let's try mysteries. Maybe that's a little better suited for you after a while when I just wasn't able to generate traction with an audience. And I tell you what, romance authors, they are some of the most amazing, creative. Any chance I get,
Mm-hmm.
I don't hesitate to, raise my glass to the romance writing world because they're just amazing. So, you know, cheers to them.
Well, they deal with 2 points of view. They deal with everything happening all over. It's not like, yeah, to me, romance is really tough. It's really tough to write.
Yeah. Well, and Sarah, you some of your books, especially with your Jack series, with your
Mm-hmm.
Court of Mystery series, some of those have a real strong romance vibe to them,
Mm-hmm.
especially between Jax and Perry. So since we're talking about it, what's kind of your take on how did that come about in your storytelling?
I think that it mostly stemmed from the fact that, like, at least for the time period that the Court of Mystery novels are set in, it's really like women were expected to find themselves a partner. And while I have a lot of rules that I break in the Court of Mystery series because it does take place in a fantasy realm, I figured, Jax is this person all up at the top by herself, but she needs someone to be able to rely on. And I think that that naturally lent itself to having a romantic partner that she could learn to trust because she has serious trust issues as well. So I think it was like a natural progression because of her kind of coming of age, of coming into power, finding herself in the world, that it was nice to have like a little romance to lighten things up.
Well, and speaking of trust, that's a perfect segue because Rose, your amateur sleuth in Death on the Set, Brenna, she has some trust issues, and so tell us about Death on the Set. Tell us a little bit about Brenna.
Okay, so Death on the Set is a story about a woman in her early 30s. She's 32. She's a high school guidance counselor, and she and her husband have moved away from Bayview City, and they're living in Wayhaven, which is another fictional town in Illinois. Her husband winds up getting into major trouble, and she doesn't find out about it until after he passes away. She learns that he's been gambling, and he has a lot of gambling debts, and he's in hock to loan sharks, and so he owes a lot of money. And he worked for a pharmaceutical company, so he was dealing drugs on the side as well. So all of this just kind of blew up her world. It's like, what? Like, what happened to this guy? He wasn't who I married. So that's one major blow that happens to her. And then about 3 months later, he passes away. He's killed in a car accident when he's driving for work. So he's killed in an accident, and it's his fault. He's driving not to road conditions because it's winter and it's icy, and he goes off the road. So that's a major blow. And 3 months later, she loses her job as a high school guidance counselor due to budget cuts. So her husband's gone. She has lost her job, and she's stuck. So her parents say, come on home, come back to Bayview City. Maybe you can get work as a high school guidance counselor there. So she moves back to Bayview City, can't find work. So she teams up with a family friend who owns a temp agency. And she says, look, we'll find you work, even if it's just temporary contracts, we'll see what we can do. So Brenna's first job that she gets is as a production assistant for a cooking reality show. And she doesn't know anything about being a production assistant, but no experience required, just come on in, we'll train you as you go. And she goes in for the interview, she aces the interview because she solves problems that they're having on the set. Her dad and uncle run a construction company, and they have a lot of tradespeople that work for them. So she's able to bring somebody in to fix the problems that they're having. Great, perfect, awesome. She's really excited about it. So it's a 6-week contract. So if something does come up with the schools, you know, she maybe can work into that later on. Second day of work, she walks into the set and finds a body in the kitchen. Not how she planned to do this. So she calls the police. She checks the body, and he's dead. The guy's dead. Like, so she calls 911, and they send the police out, and she manages to get outside and waits for them out there. And she is the main suspect because she stumbled across the body, and her key card, which has an access code that is specific to her, was the one used at midnight when this person entered the set. So she's determined to prove that she didn't have anything to do with it. She uses a lot of the skills that she has as a guidance counselor, which is talking to people, listening to them, doing a lot of research online and figuring things out and looking at things logically and doing a lot of digging. So those are some of the skills that she uses to figure out who did it. There's threatening notes, there's blackmail, and there's poisonings. So it's just, typical cozy.
So first off, Brianna's, or how do I pronounce Brianna? Okay.
Brenna. Yeah.
Her backstory, number one, is wild. But when we meet her, she's like this composed, like moving forward figure. And I thought that, I don't know if that was because she was a guidance counselor or because she became a guidance counselor because she was this composed, like, I can do this kind of person. But I thought that the way that her personality is really just on display immediately for the reader was really captivating, because we don't learn a lot about her time as a guidance counselor, but it because of how she responds to all of these situations that she's in, and they are wild situations. I absolutely was every chapter had something new and exciting in it, and I really, really enjoyed this.
Oh, good. Thank you. She's a composite of a lot of different people. I worked in distance education, and my office was in a high school, in the college part of a high school. And so this is before the internet. So when I had adult students come to see me and wanted to take programming, I wasn't sure, what exactly you need to become this, to have this career. So I would walk down the hallway and talk to the guidance counselor. You have a minute? I need some help. And they were always very calm, very matter of fact. This is what you need to do. And they didn't get rattled. They didn't get upset. And I thought, this is who I want my character to be. I don't want her getting all bent out of shape about everything that happens. She has to be steady. She has to be in control as much as she can. And so I based it on that. And then she's moving forward. She's not looking back. She has to. She's 32. She's not going to let something that happened at this stage of her life define the rest of her life, because that would be a waste.
Well, that's kudos to her. I want to take a second and remind everybody who's watching that feel free to drop a question or say hi in the chat. Mark and Claudia have both checked in already, so hi, folks. And so Rose, kind of, in talking about Brenna, one of the things that I found really interesting about many things I found fabulous about the story, but I felt like, especially early on, you took a really deep dive into police procedure, and there was a real immediacy to the entire novel, but especially early on. Was that in, I see, Sarah was nodding as well. So was that, how did you create that sense of urgency? Because it, to a certain degree, at least for me, I felt the book, a lot of times when I read cozies or traditional mysteries, they have a certain kind of almost leisurely pace to it. I felt yours had a real sense of like thriller type immediacy. How'd you do that? I want to know. I need to write some notes down for this.
I don't know. So as far as getting the police involved, and I channeled Castle. I know
Okay.
Jim's a big Castle. I am too. I love Castle. Like, I really do. And somebody mentioned in the last one, like, you should have stopped at season 7. And yeah, I actually stopped at season 3. But those first 3 seasons are awesome. But it's, to me, it was like, the police aren't stupid. Like, they make, they're there for a reason. And I wanted it to imprint because Tim and Matthew don't seem to be taking all of this really seriously. It's, we got to get PR in here now.
And those are Brenna's bosses, by the way.
Yeah.
Just to clarify. For folks who haven't read the book, you need to read the book, but those are Brenna's bosses.
Yes, they're the bosses. And all they care about is, they don't care who's dead. It's like, well, we have to fix this. It's a PR mess. And so Brenna is like, no, this is like, you can't do that. Like, you have to, this is procedure. And you're not going to be allowed to do that because the police won't let you. And her cousin, Bob McLean, is one of the detectives who responds to the scene. And he can't work, he can't talk to her at all because they're related. So I tried to make it really clear that the police had a role in it, and they were there, they were doing their job, they contained the scene. The coroner came in, I can't remember, I think it was medical examiner. I said, medical examiner comes in and takes care of the scene, and boom, 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 this is done. And the 2 detectives are right out on the case and are saying, this is what's going to happen next. And, we need this to happen and this to happen. And so I'm glad it came through, because I really wanted that to, and still the police are involved all the way through the story. And she does tell them eventually everything that she knows, but she doesn't tell it to them right away. She has to get chewed out a couple of times before she remembers to do that.
I thought the way that, so as somebody who is a self-proclaimed, I just love everything celebrity and entertainment related. So the fact that this takes place on a reality cooking show is, number one, extremely enjoyable to think about, because cooking shows are like the best to watch. But the way that how everything just like happens on this set, and everyone's expected to know like where to go and what to do. I was just like, oh my gosh, if this was my first day, I would be freaking out. But everything is handled in such like graceful, measured ways, and getting stuff done. How did you know and research the ins and out of what it's like to be, number one, on a television show, and then on a live TV show nonetheless?
So
or a reality TV show, sorry, because they did do post-production. Yeah.
I watch a lot of cooking reality shows. Like, there was Master Chef, Hell's Kitchen, Chopped, like just about everything on the Food Network. Like, I watched and I took notes. I did a lot of research online. I was talking to our neighbors at the time, we were chatting one afternoon, and they said, so like, we don't see you much anymore. What are you doing? And I said, well, I'm writing a book. Oh, what are you writing about? So I tell them she used to work in television.
Oh, wow.
And in the news, and they said, well, we might know some people who can help you. And so they put me in touch with one of the executive producers for some of the reality shows that are filmed for HGTV in Canada. And they also put me in touch with somebody who was a production assistant on different reality shows as well. So I was able to send them a couple of emails, and I had a list of questions, and boom, just like that, answers back from them, like really, really quick.
Wow.
It was awesome. And the other thing is, I had my character, I had Brenna, but I didn't know what she was going to be doing. My husband and I went to, I think it was the Mexican Riviera for a vacation. We were by the pool, and I was chatting to a woman who sitting next to me, and where are you from? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And she was from Nova Scotia, which is where I grew up. And I said, so what do you do? And she said, I'm a production assistant for a cooking show with Chef Michael Smith. So it was like, oh my, like a name I recognized, Chef Michael Smith. And she was a production assistant. And I said, what is that? What do you do? And how did you get this job? So she told me everything that she did over the course of the week. And she said, the good thing about the job is there's certain things you have to do. And she said, but it changes all the time. So it was really good. And she said, I basically do everything. Like I can deal with the talent, I can deal with the cast, with the crew, I can deal with the, bringing the food in, going to the market, all of that. So a lot of information that I don't think she knew what I was doing. I was picking her brain and getting lots of information, and it was a lot of fun. So people are generous. People are really generous. That when you ask them questions about what they're doing and what they want to do, they'll give you all kinds of information. So.
Now, did you know that Brenna was going to, because you had mentioned, like, you knew that she was going to be involved in a cooking show, but just not what the role was. Was she always going to be there associated with the temp agency? Because I thought, like, the temp angle is, like, so genius because you can do explore all these different careers throughout your series. And it's like, wow, that's such, like, a great hook when we talk about, like, finding your hook in the cozy mystery genre. Is your main character a crafter? Is your main character have a unique job that like nobody else has, or a job that people like want to know more about? And I thought, like, wow, that a temp agent is able to just like go wherever and be a fly on the wall, and makes for a great sleuth and opens up just a world of opportunity.
Yeah, she's never going to get back into being a high school guidance counselor. I'm sorry, she's just never. She's going to. Yeah, so she's going to be like the second book. She's working at a university in the research department. In the third book, she's working with the Parks and Recreation department. So she's going to be all over the place.
That's so cool.
Like so the cast of characters, there will be a core group of characters that follows Brenna around. Her best friend Emily and Kate, and her mom and dad, and Bob and Claire, the two detectives. Those will continue, but the cast of characters that come in with the different roles that she's playing and the work that she's doing, those are all going to change with the book. So it's really, it's interesting. It does, like, there's all kinds of, when Dawn and I were talking about, where's she going next? I said, well, she's never going to find work permanently as a high school guidance counselor again, because she's just going to be all over the place. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I might send her back into the school system, but not for long. She'll only be there temporarily. So
now, when Brenna first introduced herself to you, was she was her role at the temp agency like foremost in your mind, or like how did the creation process of this whole series come about?
So I knew a few things about Brenna for sure. I knew she was going to be 32. I knew she was going to be a widow. I knew there was going to be a lot of bad stuff in her backstory that she had to overcome. And I knew that if I kept her as a high school guidance counselor, she would be limited in the scope of what she would be able to do. Because if you're a high school guidance counselor, you are at the office from 8 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So that doesn't leave, and you can't leave. You have to stay there. And so I was talking to my son, and I said, I've got this character. I don't know what I'm going to do with her. And we were watching Hell's Kitchen with Gordon Ramsay, and he was pretty snarky that night. Somebody's going to kill him one day. Like, he's going to wind up dead. He's going to wake up dead. And my son said, oh, Mom, there you go. Like, put her on a cooking show. And I went, oh, I could do that. And then that's when the idea started. Well, why is she on a cooking show? Like, I already know from talking to people who work in the business. I had a friend who worked in the business as well, and she said it's not steady employment. Like, you don't get. So so production assistant would only be a short period of time. So, okay, maybe she can do temp work, and that's how it started. Okay. And that's where the kernel came. Like, oh yeah, this is what I can do with her, and I can do this, and I can send her, and that would be a hook for the series. Where's she going to be working next, and what murder is going to happen, and all of that at those different places of work. So yeah, so that's kind of how it came about.
Nice.
That is really, really cool. It's always so much fun hearing stories about how folks come up with their characters, and like you said, that story nugget. Believe it or not, we're almost half past the hour, which means it is giveaway time. Woohoo! All that good kind of stuff. So Rose is kind enough to be offering one of those babies right there, paperback copy of Death on the Set, to a lucky commenter. Man, I can't talk. I just need to sit back and drink. Anyway, so Rose is giving away one of those to a lucky commenter, and like we've done in the past, there's going to be a secret word. And Rose, the secret word is
Jake.
Jake, as in the name, Jake.
Yes.
So folks, just go ahead and feel free to drop Jake into the chat, and at the end of the day, or at the end of the hour, or at the end of the show, whatever.
We'll get there.
We'll draw the winner. And also want to take a second before we get back in. I want to say hi to Lane and Carol. Mark Rose advises you to get back into Castle, watch seasons 4 through 7, stop at the end of 7. So okay. Suggested that. Also, hi Sarah's mom, who's joined us again. So anyway, so enough of that kind of stuff. So Rose, one of the things that I think is really kind of cool is for this little show that Sarah and I are doing is you are our first international guest. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about how, we were talking before the show about the fact that even though you're north of the border, that hanging out with us a couple weeks ago when we were chatting with Linda Norlander, you found that she and you had a little bit of kind of an unexpected connection, and how it's a big world, but it's kind of a small world at the same time. So why don't you share a little bit of that? That's a fun story.
So for my husband and I raised our family in a small town on the shores of Lake Superior in northern Ontario, a town called Marathon. And the town, the fictional town in Death on the Set, is also on the shores of Lake Superior. It's in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And it is fictional. I've made this town completely up because it's a combination of Thunder Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, Marathon, Terrace Bay. So it's a mishmash of all these towns. But it was interesting because Linda is from Minnesota. And they and I'm not going to get the name of the Boundary Waters where they went canoeing, but what was it called, Jim? Do you remember?
Oh, it was the Boundary Waters of
Was it
northern
Boundary
Minnesota.
Waters? Okay.
Mhm.
So our son went to camp in Atacocan, and they would be camping for 2 weeks out in the bush, living off the land, that type of thing, and they had a great time. And the Boundary Waters is where I think they did part of the Boundary Waters when they went camping on this with this outfit. I can't remember what it was called, but they loved it. And when I was watching the show, and when she said that, my jaw dropped, and I thought, oh my goodness, what a small world.
Mhm.
And a good friend of mine, she and her husband go out, and that's their holiday. They do the Boundary Waters, and they canoe, they camp, they portage, everything. They love it. And I thought that was such a neat thing to hear Linda say, that it really, really surprised me. So yeah, it's a big world, but it's kind of small too when you look at all of that.
Yeah. And so now tell me again, now, where do you call home now?
We live in Belleville, Ontario, in southern Ontario.
Okay.
I grew up in Nova Scotia, and when my husband and I got married, we moved up north to northern Manitoba, a town called Thompson. My husband worked in gold mining most of his life, gold mining and diamond mining as well. He was a health and safety officer, training officer. So we lived in Thompson, Manitoba for 2 years. And I have never experienced cold like that before.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I remember hearing on the radio one morning, so if you don't have to go out, don't, because it's kind of cold out. And so I kind of leaned in to listen, and the DJ said, yeah, it's minus 60. And if you go out,
Kind of cold. Oh.
if you go out and you're not properly dressed, your lungs will freeze. Like, don't be stupid, people. Don't go outside unless you have to. So I didn't listen. I thought, really, how cold can it be? So I went outside, and I just put my face out, and it was like, and the hair in my nostrils froze. My breath just went, and it was like, you could feel it cold going down. And I just, that's it. Turned around, went back in. I said, I don't ever have to go outside again. So, but we lived there for 2 years, and then we moved to Marathon on Lake Superior, and we were there for over 20 years. That's where we raised our family. And then we moved to Timmins. We were there for 10, and then we moved here. And then we're retired here now. So, and it's not nearly as cold as it was up there.
So, Rose, how did Michigan become your setting for Death on the Set?
So I wanted to represent. I wanted Lake Superior to be part of the story, because it is such an amazing lake. Growing up in Nova Scotia, my backyard was a bay, and it was salt water, and it was there all the time. When we moved to Marathon, I remember we went down to the lake, and it reminded me of Nova Scotia and the bay where we lived. It was awesome. It was vast. It was huge, and it was ever changing. The water was never still. So I knew I wanted the lake to factor into my books, and we had gone to Michigan a few times with friends of ours, and we had gone just across the border from Sault Ste. Marie, Canada. We went to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and we went down to, I forget the name of the town, Brimley, I think. Anyway, I probably have that wrong, but I apologize. But we just went like 30 minutes away from the Sioux, and we played golf at a place called Wild Bluffs. And I remember standing there and playing golf with my friends, and I looked in and I said, this is exactly like it is across the water. Like, it's exactly the same thing. And they said, yeah, it is. It's, just it's different. We're in the States. And I said, no, not really. And talking to the people who were there, who were working, it was like they almost said the A at the end of everything, like we do in Canada. They almost did, and a couple of them did. But so they might have been transplanted Canadians, but it was really neat. And I thought, so, okay, I can make up a town and have it and put it up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I didn't think there were a lot of cozies set in the Upper Peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy Coco has the Fudge Shop series, and I think they're on Mackinac Island, I think, which is part of the Upper Peninsula. But yeah, so it's been interesting. But what I did is basically amalgamated a bunch of towns and cities that I was familiar with in Northern Ontario and just kind of shifted it into the Upper Peninsula, and I've made it as close to Canada as I possibly can.
Well, so we do have a question from the audience. Lane and Larry have both asked this. Kind of going back to the days in the frozen tundra when your husband was the diamond and gold miner.
Yes.
Did he ever bring any samples home?
No, that's frowned upon.
Darn it. There's a plot bunny for you right there.
Yeah, it was. The security was actually pretty intense. Every place that he worked.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was. And when he worked at the diamond mine, they were actually able to purchase diamonds as employees and get a really good rate actually on purchasing diamonds. So
very nice.
And they also learned a lot about diamonds and the qualities of diamonds, and so that might factor into a book somewhere.
I was gonna ask if that was gonna pop up, and Brenna's family just seems so well connected in Bayview City. Like she had a cousin here, an uncle over here, her dad with the construction and all of this. Like she knew she had somebody for like every situation, and I wanted to kind of hear more about her family from you, and how the role of her family kind of factors in to book one, as well as maybe popping up in subsequent.
Yeah. So her family is where I grew up. I grew up in a small community in Nova Scotia, and it's an Acadian community. So we're our first language is French, and it's a community that is encircled by everybody else around us speaks English except for us. So we have huge families in our community. The municipality is called Kerr, and so we have huge families, and families are connected and they stay together and they help each other out. And there's always somebody that you can count on for help. And that's what I was trying to bring into my stories with Brenna and her family. And actually, so her last name is Flynn. Her family's last name is Flynn. And I borrowed that from my best friend growing up. And I said to her, I said, so I borrowed your last name. And she said, oh, that's okay. And I said, and I kind of borrowed your dad and some of your brothers, because her father was a carpenter, a master carpenter, and he worked with his hands all of his life. And one of her brothers worked in the same kind of thing. So she laughed when I told her that, and then when she read the book, yeah, that's right. But that's the connection that I wanted to make, was family is there, and there's always somebody that you can count on to help you out. I have probably, I think, 18 first cousins, and then they've all married and they've all had children and their children. So the family connection is huge. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
I think that it also really lends itself, Bayview City, it's a city, but it just felt so intimate, and everyone knew each other. And the fact that Brenna has a connection to the man who is murdered, and like all the how everyone is intertwined together. And I thought that that was really skillful in the fact that, when we talk about cozies, we talk about, books that are primarily set in small towns, but you took a large population and really made it feel like warm and cozy. And I think that the family unit really lended itself well to that. So well done.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to do, because it has to be a larger city, so she can work in all these different places.
Exactly, yeah.
But there has to be a small unit that's going to follow her around, and that's going to be her core group. So the same as if you were in a small town, this core group is going to follow her around, and that will be her center. And so they will always be present. And that's one of the things that I really wanted to, because even in larger cities, you have your little neighborhoods. I remember a friend of mine who lived in one of our larger cities here in Ontario, and I remember visiting them, and I said, holy cow, like, this is a big place. We lived in Marathon that had 4,000 people living in it. Like, that was it. And I went to this place, and it was like over 150,000, 200,000 people. And I said, like, this is really big. He said, yeah, but you look at our little corner here, our neighborhood. She said, we have the neighborhood grocery store that we go to. We have all the neighbors who know us really well. So she said, it's still a big city, but we have our own cohesive small group that keeps us together. And that kind of stuck with me, because it's true. And that's what I wanted to do in these books is yeah, you can be in a big city, but you still have a small cozy group that's going to follow you around.
Yeah, that's so true. I know growing up, I live in Indianapolis, metropolitan area is about 1 million people. But yeah, where I grew up, I grew up in a smallish community on the east side where everybody did kind of know each other. And so I think that's one of those things, that personal connection to, your biological family and your larger community, that is also a family to a certain degree. I think that really resonates with folks.
Yeah. And I think, like, Brenna's friendship with Emily and Kate is really solid, and it's been solid for all of their lives. Like, they've been together since they were 4 years old, and that has stuck with them, and I think that's a big part of it too.
Yeah. So we're about quarter till now. Just having a grand time here as it's flying by. Just want to remind folks, if you haven't done so yet, the secret word for the prize giveaway is
Jake.
So, we've got a lot of folks who have entered, but for those of you who haven't yet, drop Jake in the chat, and we'll do that drawing at the end of the show. So one of the things I was also curious about the book Death on the Set, Rose, was Brenna's apartment. And not just her apartment, but the house she lives in. Because I have this vision, you tell us that she lives on the third floor. This is her in a third floor apartment. And I just imagine this grand old, colonial type of gorgeous home you used as a model, or did you come up with it completely on your own? Because just the detail, it was amazing, and I'm sorry if I'm babbling, but it was amazing the way you were able to tell us a little bit about this home, to draw us the picture without going down the rabbit hole of so much detail. Is like, okay, whatever, I get it, kind of thing.
Yeah. It's actually there was a house back in Clare that I always admired when I was growing up, because it had a tower that was right at the front, and it looked over the bay. And so that was one of my models. And then my grandmother's house was one of the models as well, because she had a big porch that went around the house, the front of the house. And then I really like old Victorian homes, and every time I see one, online, I just go all through it. So the house, the house that she lives in is it's a big old Victorian home that has been refurbished by her dad and uncle's company, and that's part of what they do is restore old homes. And so I just, the going up the stairway, I remembered what that looked like, and the posts and everything, and then the stained glass again. I remembered what that looked like in some of the homes that I'd visited and some of the things that I'd seen online. So I just kind of pulled it all together. I'm really glad that it wasn't too much description, because I was afraid I was going down the rabbit hole.
Well, and I think that's one of the things, I'm sure, Sarah, you'd agree. That's a challenge for us as authors with everything we do.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, how much do I describe somebody's description, you know, their physical features, you know, whatever. But yeah, I just, you know, I thought you really, you know, because we haven't praised you enough, you know, in this show, I thought you just nailed it. You know, again, you gave us enough detail about this house that I just had this picture of just this fit perfectly with, you know, an old community that's been there for a long time, because it made me think of being a Midwesterner here in the States, of going down to like the Ohio River, you know, or the cities like Cincinnati and Louisville that would have these huge homes built, you know, in the mid 1800s that were on the river, because that's where all the commerce and everything was back then. So I just love that.
Oh, great. Thanks, Jim. Thanks.
It was a character in itself.
Yes, yes.
I think that if you can make the setting come alive as you know, eloquently as possible, I think that's always, it takes on a life of its own. I felt a really strong connection with Emily, and I thought, like, and JC, you and I have talked about this with other guests, about the importance of our main characters' friends and being there to support each other. And not only is Emily a great friend, but she's also a lawyer. And I thought that really added a nice dynamic to her relationship with Brenna, because she's not only concerned about her from a friendship standpoint, but she's also like, okay, I'm here, I have to talk to my client, like, and all of this. And I thought that their relationship was really special. So I'd love to hear, like, how Emily came to be as a character, and the influences that she has on Brenna throughout the novel.
So she really she came into her own as I was writing her, because I wasn't sure. I knew she was going to be a lawyer, but I didn't know how strong she was going to be. And I thought, Brenna is not going to have a friend who's a pushover. She's going to want to have a friend who's going to be able to stand up to her and to work with her and to, you know, help her out when she needs to be helped. And I've had friends like that in my life. I think we all have. We all have people that we can count on. And so I based her on, she needed to be there for Brenna as a friend, but she also had to be there and say, no, you're not going to do this, because you do that, you're going to get in trouble, and you know, you can't do that. You just can't, and this is why you're not going to. So it was interesting to see how she grew throughout the story, because she really, her character grew quite a bit more than I expected her to when I started writing her. So yeah,
that's always fun.
I like her a lot.
I love it when characters kind of insert themselves and like kind of elbow their way in, and it's like, hey, like, I'm going to be a little bit more important, or I'm going to be a little bit more influential than maybe previously planned. So that's I'm glad to know that I'm not the only one that like feels like I sometimes get bowled over by my characters. It's like, you're putting me in this scene whether you wanted to or not.
Yeah. I have a nosy neighbor who's doing that in book 3 right now. So
I saw mention of that on social media, and so I wanted to kind of circle back to see how you're finding writing, you know, book 2, book 3 of a series, and what the challenges are versus writing your first book.
Well, the first book I had like 10 years to write. Don't have that. Book 2 is already with my editor. So that was handed in last September, and book 3 is due in September. So I've almost finished with that one now. So that's good. But it's been you have a deadline, you have to meet it, and I don't want to call my editor. I don't want to call Dawn and say, can you ask for more time, or can I ask for more time? I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. I want to get things done because I have more books I want to write. So I want to get these done and out of the way, kind of thing. But it's and each book is going to be sort of like a standalone because she's going to be working in a different area for each book. The characters, the main characters, are still going to follow her, like the strong secondary characters and her family unit. They're all going to follow her all the way through. So I need to develop those character arcs as well. And I have to be careful about the new people coming into the books that, because I can't carry, I don't think a series can carry 20 characters all the way through it. I think that's way too much.
You might be able to do it.
I don't know.
So no, I was going to say, do you have a release date for book 2 yet?
I don't, not yet.
Okay.
I think it'll probably be March of next year because that's when the first book released. And I think they're probably on a yearly, but I could be wrong. It could be later, could be earlier.
Okay.
Whenever they're ready.
Where, Rose, can our viewers find more information out about you and your writing?
So they can reach me. My website is rosekerr.com. I'm also on Facebook as Rose Kerr Author. I'm on Instagram as r.m.kerr. And I'm on Pinterest as, I think, R. Kerr Author.
I love Pinterest. I don't use it enough. I used to be like on it all the time. And then, but it's such a great, I use it for storyboarding and like kind of getting ideas for costumes and scenery design. So it's actually become a really useful writing tool.
Yeah, it's primarily what I use it for is I'll put my boards up with, this is who I think Brenna should look like. This is who I think she is, and this is who Connor is, and this is what Bob looks like, and this is what Claire looks like. So I've kind of got those ideas of what I want them to look like. And Brenna's house, I've got a lot of different homes that I basically took pieces out of to build the home for her. And I've got one board with Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and all these different places that you can visit and see, and mostly beaches of Lake Superior and that type of thing. So yeah, I do. I like Pinterest for that reason. That's I'm not very active on it, but I when I am on it, that's what I'm using it for.
So for our viewers that are interested in kind of like a behind the scenes look at your characters and your setting, definitely Pinterest sounds like the place to be.
Yeah, it's a good place. I find a lot of authors use it for that reason.
Well, I hate to be this way, but time is running short. And so it's time for the final segment of the program, where we kind of do a little quick thing. Folks, you kind of know the score if you've been here before. We're going to talk about, what are you watching and what are you reading? So, Sarah, why don't you lead off with what do you got for us this time?
All right. So the book that I finished reading right before I was reading Death on the Set, it is, I guess it's a mystery, but it has this kind of interesting like paranormal aspect to it, but in a very creative twist. It's called It Began with a Lie by Michelle I think it's Pariza Warsek. And I think I got it as it was like the Kindle book of the month where, you get to pick like a book every month to read. And it was really good. It's been a long time since I've read a kind of suspense thriller, and I was like, went through it in like a blink of an eye. Very entertaining. And for what I'm watching, last time I had mentioned that I was watching Prehistoric Planet, demolished those, absolutely loved it. Actually went back and rewatched an old documentary that, oh gosh, I just remember watching it when I had my tonsils out as a kid. And it's called Walking with Dinosaurs. And it hasn't aged all that well with CGI and all those special effects. But I've been like on a huge dinosaur binge lately, probably preparing for the new Jurassic World movie that's coming out this weekend, which might be the first movie that I will go to see in theaters since since the pandemic. So I'm on a dinosaur binge right now.
Well, I'll go ahead and go next then. So what I'm reading is, folks, as you've obviously heard, I just finished Rose's book, Death on the Set. I finished that 2 nights ago. And in all honesty, I blitzed through that thing faster than I've read a book in a long time. It was really that gripping and that fast paced. And so if you haven't gotten it, please do, because I think you're in for a treat. Something else I want to mention, though, is something that now I just started after finishing Death on the Set, taking a trip to Greece with author M.A. Monin's debut novel called Death in the Aegean. And it's a young woman goes to Greece on vacation, and I haven't gotten very far in, but it's just, it's like I'm there on the Mediterranean. It's just, I'm really enjoying it. As far as watching, I want to make a shout out to something really more that my wife has been watching than me. I've been kind of in and out, especially for you true crime folks out there. The Staircase. I don't know. She watched, and I watched a little bit of the Netflix documentary, and she finished that. And then now she has started the HBO Max dramatization.
That's
and
with Colin Firth, right?
Do what now?
That's
Yes.
with Colin Firth?
Colin
I've got
Firth
that to watch.
Yeah. And so for those of you who don't, strange, long, convoluted story involving a man whose wife dies falling down a staircase under strange circumstances. He goes through like 2 or 3 different trials, and it just takes a deep dive into police procedure. Really, there's a lot to chew on in terms of this defendant, because he's an author. He's got a lot of money. It was just really fascinating, and kind of a cautionary tale almost that, when something can go wrong, it will. So my wife would watch it first thing in the morning. She'd tell me about the next episode. So those are mine. That's my take. Rose, how about you?
So I just finished a really good cozy, Ruby Red Herring by Tracy Gardner. And holy cow, that was good. It had, there was more action in it than a normal cozy, so it was really good. It took place in New York City. It has art theft, antiquities. It has all kinds, the FBI, the police. It's really, really good. It grabbed me and it wouldn't let me go. It was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. She has a second book that's out, and I didn't write that one down, but I'll be reading that one shortly. And then I'll be reading, I've got Rosalie Spielman's Death Under the Sea to read. Just started that this morning. And what we're watching Better Call Saul on Netflix. We watched Breaking Bad, and which was great. We loved it, and we're really enjoying Better Call Saul because it takes place before Breaking Bad in the series, and we're seeing all these people that show up in Breaking Bad as well, and so now we know their backstory, and it's really interesting. It's a really good series. We like it a lot.
I feel like my entire family is going through Better Call Saul right now. It's like whomever I'm talking with is like, oh, we just started, or we're watching it. It's like, so I think it sounds extremely gripping.
Yeah, we're now at the start of season 4, and we just started it a week and a half ago. Like we're flying through
Those are
every
the best
night.
shows. Those are the best ones. I love it.
At least 2 episodes every night. So yeah, and
you gotta love Slippin' Jimmy McGill.
Yeah. And a few weeks ago, Sarah, we watched on Nova. David Attenborough had a couple of shows about how the dinosaurs became extinct with the asteroid that hit planet Earth. So we watched those two shows, and they were really good. We had seen one of them before, we saw the first one, and that was really good. He does such a great job with those.
He does. Although I'm still coming to terms with the fact that the dinosaurs are like now covered in feathers and fur and like all of this wild stuff, and it's like, to me, they didn't look as fantastical as they had looked when, 10, even maybe, I guess even 5 years ago. So it's fascinating to see how our knowledge has grown as time has gone on. But I'm also like, they kind of look silly now. They don't look as scary.
I know.
Well, I tell you what, Sarah, do yourself a favor and go make a trip out to Utah sometime. They have some amazing archaeological digs out there with some of the big dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And so you'll be properly frightened going out there. Before we go, I want to do another shout out. Thank you to Mark, because Mark mentioned that Ruby Red Herring is on sale for Kindle readers. So if you got a Kindle and if you're interested in that, grab it now. So anyway.
Excellent. All right. So we should do our giveaway announcement. I will give, since we are at the top of the hour, I'll give any of our viewers just a couple more seconds to type in Jake into the chat, and then we will draw our winner. Our winner will then email, I'll put our email address into the chat. Send me your mailing address so that I can get it onto Rose so that you can get your copy of Death on the Set delivered. All right. Are we ready? Drum roll, please. Mark Baker is our...
Hey, Mark, all right.
Awesome. Congratulations, Mark. You are in for a treat with Death on the Set. I am putting the email address that you can send me your mailing address to. Awesome. It is giveaways@thebookishhour.com. Rose, thank you so much for being here this evening. Your book was absolutely delightful. It was delightful to talk with you. So thank you so much for spending time with us. Thank you so much to our audience who is here with us live. We so appreciate you guys taking the time out of your schedules to be here with us, and for spending an hour on Thursdays talking about our love of books.
Yeah, I just want to echo everything Sarah said. Y'all are the best. Rose, it was fabulous getting to hang out with you, both a while back ago at Malice Domestic and then here online. To all of our folks out there in the wide world of the wide World Wide Web, thanks for hanging out with us tonight too. I believe they will see us all. We'll see you again in about 2 weeks, right?
Yes, we will be back on, I almost said January, but we'll be back on June 23rd at 8 p.m. on YouTube. And so again, Rose, thank you very much for being here. Everyone,
Thanks,
we will see you at our next episode. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, guys. This was fun.